Thank you to Prusa Research for sponsoring this trip, which is exactly why I'm going to ask you all the tough questions that I've come up with. People were noting on the Murph video that, hey, you seem to be really rude to this guy, but I mean, I don't want to come across as a shill. Thanks for taking the time, and thanks for showing off the Prusa Mini. It's weird not calling it the Mark something Mini anymore. So what's the deal with this guy? Everyone wants to know about it.
So I mean, the Mark III is perfect workhorse, but it is, with all its features and with all its parts, it is still for some people a tough price to swallow. So we wanted to make something simpler, still very much reliable and more affordable. So that is why we created this little guy, which is just $349.
Let's just go over the features of the Mini as it stands, because it looks kind of small in person because there's not a whole lot of material to it. Yeah. But it's still a fairly capable machine. So run us through the specs. What does it do?
So the main thing is it is still pretty large build volume. It's 18 by 18 by 18 centimeters, which compared to our flagship Mark III, which has 25 by 21 by 21, is still pretty good. You can print. I mean, we were thinking about our farm, so most of our parts, or basically all of the Mark III parts, are printable on this. So for our production, we could switch to these. We haven't done so yet. We just, part of the farm is these ones, because I just don't want to throw away the perfectly good Mark IIIs. But yeah, we still need some Mark IIIs on the farm if we are printing jigs and like manufacturing helpers. But
so, yeah, as far as the size goes, I mean, it looks small, but this is basically the size that 3D printers used to be. The 20 by 20 centimeter build area was the standard for many, many years. The Mark III is already slightly larger than that. So yeah, 18 by 18 centimeters. It looks small, but again, I'd be comfortable with a 15 by 15 centimeter printer still too. So it's $349. And here comes the first question. Actually, it's like $399, right?
What do you mean? You can get it for $349. Yeah.
So $349. If you're comparing it, yeah, as shown, if you compare it to the Mark III with like feature parity as much as that goes, you are selling two upgrades to this machine, which is the filament sensor, yeah, which is a $20 upgrade, and you're also selling the textured PI sheet. By default, it only comes with the stickered one. Yeah. So, but still $349. Okay.
So the thing is that to achieve this price point, we can't include everything, and the reasoning with filament sensor, as it is, the machine is much smaller. You are not printing such large prints, so there's a less chance you will run out of filament. But if you want it, and if you want to run it on the farm, you can get the optional upgrade. And the reasoning with the texture sheet, so we are After our experience with Mark III, we find out that if you are a very first-time user, which we expect a lot of people with the Mini will be, it is a little bit easier for the users to use the smooth PI, because it's not as finicky with the Live Z adjustment or the first layer height to get it stuck. And textured one is you have to clean it a little bit more. So that is why we want everyone to have the smooth one.
The other big feature that's on here that's actually better than the Mark III is you now have a completely new 32-bit platform with TMC 2209 drivers. Yeah. That's the buddy board, right?
Yes. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's better in every way. If you think about the Mark III, we have 8-bit board. I mean, as you joked before, 32 is 4 times better than 8, right?
So is it 4 times as expensive to make now?
No, actually 32-bit boards are, the 32-bit processors are cheaper. But the thing is that there's so much development done on the 8-bit firmware. It prints just as good, if not better at this point than the 32-bit firmwares we have, because there is like work of 5 developers for years and years and years of optimizing and developing and tuning drivers. So this is maybe why we are starting with 32-bit on a more basic machine, which doesn't have as many advanced features.
But for the future to come, a 32-bit platform should be easier to develop onto because you don't need to hyper-optimize every single bit of code. Yes. And right now we just have the basic framework, but we can probably expect it to develop much faster than the code that we had for 8-bit.
Yes, we now have two firmware teams. One is doing the 8-bit firmware, which we still have plenty of features coming up for the Mark IIIs.
That's nice to see that you're still adding on to the legacy 8-bit boards.
I mean, we are supporting even Mark II. This is just how we do it. We are not abandoning all the users. So we are still listening what people want and what they have, what they think can be optimized, and we are adding and optimizing all the time. So just recently for the Mark III, we added sheet profiles.
The different thickness or the detection distance of the pin probe, which this one also has. So that feature's in here already, or is that one of those things that is still coming?
That is not yet supported here.
Okay. Back to the board. The board, as you hold it up right now, is basically the same. It's a bit larger than the Einzi board, it looks like. You've got an Ethernet port in there, so that means it has network connectivity built right in. You don't need to add Octoprint or a Raspberry Pi to it.
Yes, so as we mentioned this, as it can be a very nice farm printer. And if you run farm, you want to have everything connected. So that is why we have Ethernet built in, and it can write, it can run light IP stack, and we can run a web server on it, and you can have controls on the printer.
So right now you're not showing off a web interface yet, but I assume this is going to be a very similar interface to what's on the Do-It series of boards, RepRap firmware, that is just a very a usable interface that you can control the printer with, upload files, get a preview, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, honestly, I like to keep this thing simple. You know, there's a difference between our machines and when we are doing it, and when you are building your own machine and you need all the knobs and switches to tune it, because we are doing this ourselves. So that allows us to have much simpler user interfaces, much simpler UI, more optimized. You shouldn't need to go, as it's on the LCD, you shouldn't need to go to the menu and tune the motor driver current, right? Okay. So the same is with the web interface. I mean, it should be simple. So everybody, even when you are starting out, when you see there, it should be one page, and you could do everything you need from that page. And I mean, everything tightly integrated with the slicer, so you don't need to have multiple file menus and stuff like that. So you should just be able to start the print from the slicer, and then you could monitor it from the page.
But if you want to do those things, you still can. Like this. Yeah. We quickly talked about this. This is still open source. Well, you're releasing the files once you start shipping. Yeah. But it's not like it's being locked down and people physically cannot change print parameters because, we want that. Right?
Yeah, of course, everybody can compile the firmware, and it is actually simpler now. I mean, it is so nice that when we develop, we can use JTAG, right, or ST-Link in this case.
Oh, debugging, man.
Yeah, so you don't have to print out messages through serial port to debug, which is crazy.
Let's jump into the mechanical design of the printer a bit, because it is different to your previous printer. It's now a cantilever design. So if I bump this table, is this arm going to start shaking? I think that's one of the concerns that people are having.
So pretty much no, because the whole Z-axis and also X-axis is supported by the two 10mm rods, but for twisting is prevented by having the aluminum extrusion here. So it is pretty tough.
I'm sure you've got it under control, but it looks different. Somebody's already commented on the live stream from yesterday that, hey, one of the first mods is going to be just adding a second Z-axis.
Okay, or you can just buy the Mark III then. But yeah, we tested it and it's fine. And this, what I'm saying is reminding me when we come out with the Mark III, right? And everybody was like, oh my God, this is going to shake as hell. And we will never get a nice print out of it. And look where we are now. So we tested it. I wouldn't do a larger bed or larger x-axis like this. But for this size, it is more than sufficient. I posted a video when I was running over on Twitter when I was running over 100 millimeters a second with, I think that was 3,000 millimeter per second squared acceleration.
That's more than Mark III does.
I mean, we have a little bit smaller bed, so we have less weight, and the extruder is much smaller.
Oh, speaking of the extruder, that is I think one of the big changes. So you now have a Bowden on there. You've always avoided Bowdens on the previous Mark something machines. You now have a Bowden, well, except for the MMU one, that was a Bowden system technically too. You now have a Bowden, and you now have a custom hot end that kind of looks like it's still E3D-ish, compatible-ish, but it's definitely a custom block. What is that?
So it is the nozzle is E3D compatible. I'm not sure if we are going to ship the real ones here, but it is
real ones as in ones made by E3D. So this is a custom design, I assume.
Yeah, but the rest of the hot end is designed by us because to optimize the price and the weight of the extruder, we needed to use parts for more than one use. So basically the heatsink of the extruder is also part of the X-carriage.
It's a mechanical component as well.
Yes, and also so we needed to make custom heat breaks, and to provide cooling we needed to make custom heater blocks. The nozzle is still compatible.
And this one is not an all-metal design. I guess that's just one of the trade-offs you have to make because, you know, making a Teflon-lined hot end is a bit cheaper than making a highly precisely machined all-metal one. So you mentioned the top temperature. Can I believe you on those 280 degrees?
So basically the Teflon tube doesn't go into the heater block. But when we were testing it, and we are still going through the test, the place, if you heat up the nozzle to 300 degrees Celsius, the place where the Teflon tube ends is like 160 degrees Celsius.
I'll have to take one apart, obviously, to actually know what that looks like on the inside.
But you know, that is also the thing, that the heatsink is much more efficient than with the round ones, because this allows much more air to go through. So it also cools the heat break much easier.
And one question that's come up in yesterday's stream too is the part cooling is just from one side now. So it's just from the back. It doesn't have that wraparound cooling as Mark III has. Are you seeing a difference in print quality there?
So this is similar cooling what we had on the Mark I. So there are different ways how you can look at the cooling. So this allows much more air to go through because it is not redirected, and it is from further distance, so it fans out a little bit. So you are making a blanket of cool air. So I would say it's on par with the Mark III.
I'm going to have to test it whether the front and back sides actually look the same as far as overhangs go. Now, given that some of these parts are newer than what we're seeing on the Mark III's, as in the board, and the hot end is a new part for you guys, and it has better drivers and all that, will we be seeing some parts of those backported onto Mark III's?
I mean, that is a question which everybody knows the answer to, right? I mean, it's obvious that we are not going to have two separate ecosystems, and we want to merge the firmware teams. But the real question is, when is that coming? And that is what I don't know, because we need to wait until this launch, and and take the feedback from this, and we need to, based on that, finalize what we want to do in the Mark IV, and based on that, I can find out when we will be able to manufacture it and release it. But it is not it is not going to happen in 1 month. It is next year.
So that there is There's going to be a Mark IV, obviously. Well, know that, but there's not going to be like a Mark III S, Mark III S2 or something.
No, I mean, I don't think it would be worth the upgrade just to switch Mark III to 32-bit, because
I mean, people are going to do it, but
of course. But I mean, this board is not suited for the Mark III,
okay.
because
What is it missing?
it is not missing much. But we wanted, as we are thinking about schools and stuff, we wanted to use a power brick.
Right.
And so you get the power to the board by this connector, and it can't handle the full Mark III.
So Mark III is going to see a slightly different board with heated bed support and all that.
Yeah, with the quantities we are making,
Mark IV, sorry.
it makes sense for us to make custom boards for each of the printers. But yeah, it will definitely come. But we are not going to just bump the Mark III to 32-bit, because that wouldn't add much. I mean, if you need Ethernet, you can use the Raspberry Pi. A lot of people do it, but we would like to add more than just 32-bit, because the print quality wouldn't increase.
Yeah. So Mark IV, I take it, or this is kind of my speculation, because now we have a low-cost printer that actually, $349. The only competition is now the next step up, the Mark III S kit. Considering that you now have a low-cost option, does that mean that Mark IV is going to be a more expensive printer because you don't need to cater to a lower-cost audience anymore?
I mean, if we are to do the successor to Mark III, then it will be the same price as we kept it all the time.
But will it be?
As I don't.
Time will tell, I guess.
As I don't know the final spec, but with cheaper 32-bit processor, we could bump the bill of materials somewhere else. Yeah.
That would be nice to see. And do you have any other news to share at this point of future developments?
Yes, we do. So basically, it is now a running joke in the community, right? So everybody asks for a bigger printer, and so what do? You release a smaller one. But so that's why we also, I would say, tease a larger machine. Yes.
So Prusa XL, Core XY, I believe, has been mentioned on the website.
Yes. So we are thinking about 40 by 40 by 40 or something.
That is very usable size-wise.
Somewhere around that. And we aim to be between 12 to 1,500 US dollars.
Take that, Ultimaker.
How much is Ultimaker nowadays?
I think 5,500 for the S5 or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I was with the S5 with
the S3 is like 4,500 ish or 3 to 4K, somewhere like that. Yeah.
We were joking in the office that if you want to buy the S5 Pro bundle, it's somewhere around 30 minis you can buy for the price. But for that XL, we have prepared a new extruder, which will be pretty sweet, and also we have a new heat bed system for that big one.
So good old PCB plus magnetic bed is not cutting it anymore at the sides, so it will still be flexible, I'm hoping?
Yeah, it will still use the sheets, but there are other cool stuff.
Very excited for that, but for the time being, I mean, this is just nice and cute.
Yeah, and
there's
one feature there's one feature on the Mini we didn't show on the video. You can tilt the screen.
Oh yeah, Mikolash has actually posted that. Yeah, best feature. Let me demonstrate. So you can tilt that back and forth, because that's something that I've noticed on some printers. The Mark III is actually pretty good, but on some printers it's like up this and we're at that angle, and you have to crouch down to read it.
Yes. Yeah. That is. I mean, you can't really. This is if you have farm and you have like multiple shelves.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go like this, or you don't go like this. But I mean, we like to have the printers easy to use, so that is why, for example, the SL1, the original design was with the screen like flat on the face of the printer, and nobody liked me if I forced them to redo it in a way that you can see it and like actually like use it comfortably.
it's just those little things, because again, you guys are actually using your own printers to make more printers. Now you're not using the Prusa Mini to make more Prusa Minis exclusively. That would have been really cool, just having the Mark III print farm print the Mark IIIs and the Minis print Minis. But these are just a regular part of your print farm, cranking out parts and being durability and quality tested in that way.
Yeah, I mean, there are things, people usually compare the printers just by the parameters, right? And I think that is why what is happening if somebody has somebody had previously other printer and then they start using ours, then they can appreciate, because we optimize also how the ease of use. So I mean, it's joy to use compared to some other printers where you have to scrape everything and you have to prepare the beds for printing and stuff like that. So this has all of the quality of life improvements we have on other printers, even though it doesn't have all the features like MMU support and stuff like that.
But yeah, as a basic printer, I mean, I still need to test one. I can't give a fully qualified opinion on it, but looks nice. So yeah, thank you for the time. Thanks for the interview.
Thank you.
And looking forward to trying one of these out.
Yes, thank you.